Oh, hello. Yes, this is about a deck that I always found quite interesting. I liked seeing it in the past sets, and I'll admit, in the previous sets, I never thought it was meta viable. I thought if you brought this to a big event, you might be risking, yeah, maybe a store champs you could win. But it feels like they've got enough tools now that the whole deck's sort of coming together quite well. So yeah, I'm quite excited to talk about our matchup into them. The core of the deck from earlier sets, like probably set 2 to set 4, was the time when it really became a big thing. Set 1, it was a different sort of thing. But in set 2, what it utilized mainly was ramp to the top end using Mickey. Now they use Tippo as well. And ramp to the top end and get Elsa out to exert characters, bounce Elsa, keep exerting, keep playing wide, keep playing loads of pressure. Make sure you have a big load of cards in your hand for any board wipes, and just that was sort of one of their issues was that B prep really reset them very far back. But into other matchups, they did really really well. Um, and yeah, just basically ramp up to that big threat, keep her active, keep her alive, keep her exerting. 4/6 meant she can't get Zeus. It's very hard to remove her, so she's probably going to be safe to be bounced back to the hand as well. They also use all of the bounce package. They still have Goat as a win con as well. They have loads going on there. And I'm liking the list that we're seeing so far. A lot of them as well, they're testing things out of. There's very different directions you can go. Blurple, you're using two powerful colors that have loads of options in them. I'm seeing some that go ramp up to the top end and then play Mufasa out, so just basically throw a Mufasa on the board as early as you can. And then you've got other ones that, yeah, they're utilizing a lot of the locations, and all of these are sort of coming together. And we've seen loads of decks perform really well. And at the side event at Toronto for Set 5, there was somebody topped with a Blurple, and I think that's sort of laying the groundwork for what we're going to see Blurple players deciding to play in the future. But yeah, they've got loads of things to choose from. They've got locations as well. I think the best one to pick is Mukduk Mana. I think you benefit more if you're playing a deck that does Mukduk Mana, Goats, and you're just throwing loads of cool stuff on the board. I think that's really awesome. They might opt to use the castle as well, the Queen's Castle, and just make the board really awkward with that so much ink advantage. It doesn't really matter how much you play. And now they've got cards like Tippo, so they can do a line of turn one Chernobog, turn two Tippo, turn four Goats to start recovering the hand. No, Goat, sorry, Rabbit. So they've got loads of awesome plays to make. I've seen some as well. They're not reliant on the bounce package as much. Some have gone for the item draw with Hiram and Popsicle. I don't think those lists are going to survive because yeah, they're not utilizing a lot of the other items that make that draw engine so good. So yeah, it's mainly about the bounce package and getting to the top end where you've got things like Elsa. Now they've got Mufasa, as I mentioned. There's no reason for them to play Tamatawas. They just shouldn't be playing that many items. But yeah, mainly Mufasa and Elsa at their top end. And into the matchup, it's quite interesting, I thought. I always in past sets thought if I got paired with a Blurple play, I was like, this is probably a free win. They're never going to reset boards, so as long as I go wide, it's fine. But yeah, they've got some really interesting takes on it now, and they've got some nice new cards. Like I say, Tippo is very good for them. They've got the 2/5 Exert, then Rush Elsa, which also helps them with their shift because they can put it on top of the Elsa that the 8 cost Elsa to get out even earlier if they don't hit the ramp properly. But I mention that I've played quite a lot of. Oh, my computer's connected to something. I've played quite a lot of. Blurple, played a lot of Blurple, so I played a lot of Sapphire matchups because now we're seeing Blurple's popularity coming in, and we've also seen Blue Green as well, both great decks, and they're both coming into the meta and becoming quite popular. And what I'm noticing is when you play against another deck that includes Sapphire in its list, the thing that comes out quite prominent is the Sapphire color. The other color takes quite a tertiary, though secondary, sorry, not tertiary, but secondary role in the matchup, and it's not as important. It's mainly about who's going to ramp better, who's going to ramp more efficiently. The cheap characters you play at the start aren't going to matter that much because you're playing to the late game. They can, of course, get some nice questing in early. They're going to play a lot more characters on board than we are. One of their common lines is a Mickey, then Mickey sings friends, so they get to draw cards back again, and they didn't lose any cards in hand from the ramp. As well, yeah. So I find in the Sapphire matchups as well, Quill is like MVP. Sometimes, like I played against Blue Green, and it was just who got Quill down first and who actually got to use a Quill. And if your opponent whiffs and never gets a Quill, you just go so far ahead on that matchup. I've noticed how just important it is to use the Quill. But with Blurple, they don't actually use the quill, or I haven't seen many lists that use it. Maybe it's because their hand just won't be replenishing as fast, and they're more character focused. They're not really item focused. They don't seem to use the quill, which makes sense. So we do have that aspect on them, but don't underestimate that. They can still do a Mickey Donald ramp to 7 ink if they do Tippo And then ramp, they have loads of character-based ramp. It's not like they're starved of ramp. They just do not have an item that efficiently says I get an extra ink every turn if I have a card spare to ink. Yeah, that's the only difference to it. But going into it, some of them play Cogsworth. I'm not seeing it as much, and that kind of makes it a little bit rough because in that sense we are just basically playing a Cogsworth and the basic, it feels very much like the Blue Steel Mirror because someone will establish Cogsworth, maybe establish another one, and then they just start turning sideways for questing lore, and that's just really, really rough. But a lot of them aren't, which means that you actually get to fight the board, interact it, play your Cogsworth down, and win the board very hard. But yeah, if they're playing a Cogsworth Mirror and they get to go play goats as well and bounce goats and stuff, when you're in that stalemate, they can just keep bouncing goats or bouncing whatever and just basically win. So that's kind of rough. It feels like if you wheel them, it's not that bad because I said they've got purple draw, so majority of the time they're going to consistently be drawing, and because they do use Tippo to ink, they do still want to keep their hand quite full. So yeah, it feels quite a fair matchup, to be honest with you. I quite enjoy it. Because they have to spend turns on ramp, like turn 3 has to be a Mickey or turn 2 has to be a Tippo. They aren't going to be going like Chernobog and then a 2-quester. They aren't going to be going 2-quester, 2-quester, 2-quester because they have to actually establish some of their turns to playing ramp. Otherwise, they're not unlocking half of their deck. So going into it, yeah, I think it's a very fair matchup. I'm just going to go through sort of a Mulligan strategy for it. This is the deck I've been playing a little bit more recently. As I said in a tweet, my decks are going to just be changing quite frequently as the weeks go on. We've got a big event coming up soon that should help us learn more. So yeah, going into this, I would get rid of these things like here. Tinkerbell would be great, but I think we also do want to establish a character. As I say, they do have to still give turns to character and character ramp, and they will most likely go maybe Chernobog, Tippo, and then play a rabbit to recover from it with the card draw. But they could, if not, they could play a 1-drop Snake, Mickey, and just have like stuff to start turning sideways. And there really isn't a scenario where we wouldn't want to have what's it called? Smee on board. Like Smee on 2 is just like our thing. That's our jam. So I'd send all these back. Yeah, here and for our card draw, as I say, we don't have to wheel them. Wheeling also never feels that bad either because even if they don't have particularly too many cards in hand, a good Blurple player will be saving like a rabbit and a bounce or whatever. So yeah, I think I'd send that back. I'd Mulligan. So it's kind of rough. We won't really, but if we're on the play, we get to ink the Let It Go. Kind of impactful in this game. I'd actually think about inking a Hiram. They don't really have an amazing answer for it if you've established with a Cogsworth. Of course, once a Hiram is exerted, they have foxes and crabs. But besides that, I don't think it's too bad. So I think you could probably even ink one of the Hirams. The Let It Go could be saved, but I still think actually it's too early. So I think I would ink the Let It Go. I'd go Mickey Cogs, and if the hand's really looking bad, I would get the Whole New World sung and then play to the 6 ink that you'd be playing with at that point. So on the draw, yeah, this is not that bad. We would want some things here that make this a little bit better. We haven't hit ramp, and I want to keep only 2 cards. You can keep the Fire the Cannons. It probably would be quite good to fire the cannons at Chernobog because it will basically deny them 1 card draw because they will pop that at an appropriate time. It's also not that bad because if they just pop a Chernobog, it's not the end of the world. But sometimes I just like to deny as much lore as they can because if they're really going to get some early questing lore done in, then they're going to go goats, maybe some manners, maybe some what's it called? Yeah, play the Fasser out. Maybe they've just made up so much lore of that early questing lore where we could have denied 1 or 2 of it really. So that's just I think why I'd probably keep it in the end. But honestly, they're not that aggressive on questing. They're slower than RP. They do not have as many 2-questers. And if we're seeing in the meta that Olaf is being played a lot, which we might see, which is a 1-3, then it's just entirely no reason to keep the fire cannons at all. And it's an uninkable we're keeping. So yeah, that hand's kind of rough. Not that bad. I think we'd have enough turns to draw into ramp, and we did Mulligan 5, so hopefully we would find it. But getting a dime in the start is never great. We didn't actually hit ramp on either of these, so that's kind of we did on the other one. We got it with the Mickey. So we got one hand where we got basically ramp and cogs and what we wanted, and then this hand where we've got the early stuff that we wanted. But yeah, we'll see. Hopefully you can ink on that ink on that turn, play the fire the cannons to take a Rafiki out or whatever. Play a Smee. And that might even benefit you that you dealt with a character earlier because if you miss ramp, you could be just a bit worse off for that. And just slowing them down is pretty good. If you took out a Rafiki, then you have a Smee to trade and be like, hold on, okay, I just need a little bit of time to get to these Donalds or just get something to hit me ramping. Because as I said, it's sort of a sapphire matchup, so you just You can't not be ramping. If you miss it, you can't be like, fair play, I'll just play my deck mid range. No, you have to find ramp because they're gonna find ramp. So yeah. But yeah, maybe not the strongest hand, but of course you're going to get one draw at the start of the turn, which could impact it. If that's a Mickey, I think if it's a Mickey, win that game pretty hard because then you can go Mickey, Donald, Simba, and you've got this insane board basically. So yeah, one Mickey would make this hand perfect, I think. But yeah, that's sort of my thoughts on Blurple and how we want to approach it in this meta.